Imagine the teacher's face, frozen in disbelief. She'd openly doubted young Malik Carter, scoffing when he claimed his dad worked at the Pentagon. Then he walked into the elite Ethelred prep showcase, impeccably dressed, radiating quiet authority, a high-level DoD badge gleaming on his lapel. Malik's vindication was electric, but shatteringly brief. Suddenly, the lights flicker and die. Emergency strobes cast eerie shadows as the entire school plunges into lockdown. Gunfire echoes. His father wasn't just there to silence doubters, he was fighting a deadly enemy drawn by his very presence. Discover the story where prejudice meets peril, elite school corridors become a battleground, and the fight for dignity ignites into a desperate fight for survival. What terrifying secrets followed them through those iron gates? The hallowed air of Ethelred Preparatory School in Arlington, Virginia, carried the scent of old money and ambition. Sunlight streamed through arched windows, illuminating dust motes dancing over polished mahogany desks. For 10-year-old Malik Carter, the light felt less like a blessing and more like a spotlight. He adjusted the knot of his crimson and gold Ethelred tie, the silk feeling rough against his neck, a constant reminder that he was breathing rarefied air, different from the neighborhood streets he knew just a few miles away. Every morning was a performance: straighten the blazer, smooth the anxieties, walk tall into a world that observed him with a polite, piercing curiosity. Malik, breakfast. His father's voice, calm and measured, echoed from the kitchen downstairs. Jonathan Carter possessed an innate stillness, a way of moving through the world that commanded attention without demanding it. Even in worn jeans and a simple polo shirt, reading intelligence briefs on a secured tablet at their modest kitchen table, he projected an aura of quiet authority. Coming, Dad. Malik took a final look in the mirror, practicing the easy smile that masked the knot in his stomach. Downstairs, the familiar comfort of sizzling bacon filled the air. Big day today? Jonathan slid a plate towards Malik, his eyes sharp, missing nothing. Malik swallowed a mouthful of scrambled eggs. Yeah. Mrs. Vance is doing career circle time today. We talk about what our parents do. Pride flickered in his chest. I'm gonna tell them about you working at the Pentagon. Jonathan's gaze held Malik's for a beat longer than usual. All right. Just remember what we discussed, son. I know, Malik recited, a familiar mantra. Need to know. Keep it simple, smart kid. Jonathan ruffled Malik's hair, a rare moment of easy affection. Now eat up. Traffic's already building on the 395. Ethelred Prep stood like a Gilded Age fortress, its wrought iron gates separating its manicured lawns from the bustling Arlington streets. As Malik climbed out of his father's reliable but unremarkable sedan, he watched the procession of gleaming Teslas and Range Rovers disgorge his classmates. He squared his shoulders, waved a quick goodbye, and merged into the stream of privilege heading towards the imposing oak doors. The hallways buzzed with the low hum of entitlement. He felt the usual stares, not hostile, exactly, but evaluating, measuring. As if his presence required constant justification. Malik. Hey. A friendly voice cut through the noise. Leo Sharma, his dark hair perpetually escaping its neat comb-over, jogged up beside him. Leo, whose father was a renowned surgeon at Walter Reed, was one of the few who treated Malik without a hint of condescension. Ready for Vance's circle of destiny? Malik managed a grin. As I'll ever be. You talking about your dad saving lives again? Leo winced playfully. Gotta keep the legend alive. What about you? My dad. The Pentagon. Leo's eyebrows shot up. Whoa, seriously? Like, the Pentagon? That's cool. They entered Mrs. Vance's classroom, a space dominated by historical maps and the faint scent of lavender air freshener. Eleanor Vance was the epitome of Ethelred elegance, tailored skirt suit, pearls, an air of serene control honed over 2 decades of shaping young elite minds. Her smile, however, often felt less warm and more like a carefully maintained facade. The circle time began, a parade of future titans. Bryce Kensington, whose father ran a powerful lobbying firm on K Street, spoke of legislative victories. Sophia Du Bois detailed her mother's groundbreaking work at the National Institutes of Health. When it was Malik's turn, a hush fell over the circle. He felt 20 pairs of eyes fix on him. My dad, Malik began, his voice tighter than he'd intended. He works for the government. At the Pentagon, a soft titter started near Bryce. It spread like spilled ink. Malik's cheeks flushed hot. Mrs. Vance tilted her head, her smile unwavering but somehow sharper. The Pentagon? How fascinating, Malik. Doing what, precisely? Is he one of the generals we read about? Her tone was light, almost playful, but the undercurrent was unmistakable. Doubt. Amusement. No, ma'am, Malik said, gripping his knees. He works in threat mitigation for the Cyber Command Directorate. He used the slightly more specific, yet still vague, term his father sometimes employed. Bryce snorted loudly this time. Cyber Command? Yeah, right. My uncle works there, the real one. He says it's all PhDs and guys who look like they never see the sun. No offense, Malik. More giggles rippled through the group. Mrs. Vance finally intervened, but not to defend Malik. Bryce, that's enough. Malik, she turned back to him, her voice softening into a tone Malik recognized, the one reserved for gentle correction, as if he were a much younger child needing redirection. It's wonderful to have aspirations and to be proud of our parents, truly. But this circle is for sharing factual information. Perhaps your father helps with building services there? That's very important work too. The implication hung heavy in the air. Janitor. Clerk. Not one of us. Malik felt his throat close. He wanted to scream that his dad was brilliant, that he protected the country, that he wasn't less than their parents. But the words wouldn't come. He just stared at his shoes, the polished floor reflecting his burning face. Leo shot him a look, halfway between sympathy and helplessness. The circle moved on, leaving Malik stranded in a sea of quiet mockery, the weight of their whispers pressing down on him. The rest of the day was a blur of forced smiles and averted gazes. The sting of Mrs. Vance's condescending correction and Bryce's casual dismissal echoed louder than any school bell. Malik moved through classes like a ghost, the vibrant halls of Ethelred feeling cold and alien. He saw Bryce holding court by the lockers, mimicking typing on an imaginary keyboard and rolling his eyes, undoubtedly recounting Malik's Pentagon story. Humiliation coiled in his gut, hot and bitter. When Jonathan picked him up, the usual question, "How was school?" felt like a loaded weapon. Malik mumbled a noncommittal, "Fine," turning to stare out the window at the passing blur of Arlington's tidy suburbs. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken words. "Something happened in Career Circle, didn't it?" Jonathan's voice was quiet, probing gently. "The dam broke." Words tumbled out, the circle time, Mrs. Vance's saccharine disbelief, Bryce's sneering, the way the whole class seemed to silently agree he was lying, exaggerating, trying too hard to belong where he clearly didn't. "She basically called me a liar, Dad. In front of everyone. She suggested you were maybe a janitor there." Jonathan's knuckles whitened slightly on the steering wheel, the only outward sign of his reaction. His voice, when he spoke, remained dangerously calm. "I see. Mrs. Vance, you said?" "Yeah. Why don't you ever come to school stuff?" "If they saw you." "Malik, you know my work is sensitive. Visibility isn't always helpful." "Helpful?" "Dad, they think I'm making you up." Jonathan pulled into their driveway, the engine idling. He turned to Malik, his gaze intense. "People often fear or dismiss what they don't understand, Malik. Sometimes, their underestimation can be a shield. But no one," his voice hardened almost imperceptibly, "has the right to demean you or question your truth like that." Before Malik could respond, Jonathan's encrypted phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at the screen, and Malik saw that familiar shift, the subtle tightening of his jaw, the laser focus in his eyes. "I need to take this. Go on inside, start your homework. We'll talk more." Malik trudged inside, the injustice burning. Later, while struggling with algebra, he heard fragments of his father's conversation drifting from the study, the door left slightly ajar. Unusual chatter, targeting the Ethelred network specifically, cross-referencing with DoD personnel lists. "No, that's not random, escalate monitoring, potential vulnerability." Malik froze. Ethelred? DoD personnel? His father rarely discussed work specifics, even in hushed tones. A chill traced its way down his spine. That night, sleep offered little escape. Malik kept replaying the scene in the classroom, Mrs. Vance's pitying smile, Bryce's smirk. He got up for water and glanced out his bedroom window. Across the street, under the flickering sodium lamp, sat a dark sedan he didn't recognize. It wasn't the ostentatious luxury car of an Ethelred parent, it was nondescript, utilitarian. Someone was inside, silhouetted against the faint glow of a phone screen. Watching, he padded down the hall to his father's room. "Dad? There's a weird car outside." Jonathan was awake, already standing by his own window, peering through the blinds. He showed no surprise. "Just some security protocols, Malik. Nothing to worry about. Go back to sleep." "But who?" "Son," Jonathan's voice was firm but kind. "Trust me on this. Go to bed." The next day dragged. Malik felt Mrs. Vance's eyes on him during history class, her expression now carrying a hint of evaluation? Or perhaps it was just his own heightened sensitivity. At lunch, Leo tried to distract him with talk of video games, but the shadow of yesterday lingered. As they walked towards the exit after the final bell, Mrs. Vance called Malik back. "Malik, a moment?" Her tone was professionally cordial. "Next Friday is our annual Parents' Showcase. It's a chance for parents to visit, see the students' work. Given your enthusiasm for your father's occupation, perhaps he might be able to attend? It would be lovely to meet the man behind the impressive title." The challenge was subtle, wrapped in politeness, but unmistakable. She didn't believe him. She was daring him to prove it. That evening, Malik relayed the invitation, the unspoken challenge, to his father. He explained Mrs. Vance's veiled skepticism, the lingering whispers. Jonathan listened intently, his earlier calmness replaced by a quiet resolve. "She wants proof, does she?" he murmured, staring into the middle distance. He looked at Malik, saw the hope warring with resignation in his son's eyes. "All right. Next Friday, you said? Tell Mrs. Vance I'll be there." Malik's breath caught. "Really? You can get away?" "Consider it essential personnel business." A ghost of a smile touched Jonathan's lips. "I think it's time Mrs. Vance and I had a chat." Later, Malik heard his father on the phone again, the study door firmly closed this time. He caught only snippets, confirming attendance. Ethelred Showcase, standard precaution level inadequate, potential for direct interaction, elevate to Omega. Omega. Malik didn't know what it meant, but it sounded serious. Outside, the dark sedan was back, a silent sentinel in the suburban night. A strange mix of dread and anticipation settled over Malik. Friday couldn't come soon enough. The day of the Ethelred Parents' Showcase arrived under a sky the color of bruised plums, threatening rain that never quite fell. The air inside the preparatory school, however, crackled with a different kind of electricity. Parents, dressed in casual Friday finery that likely cost more than Malik's father's monthly mortgage payment, mingled with practiced ease, their laughter echoing off the vaulted ceilings. Malik stood by his modest display on renewable energy sources, feeling acutely aware of his father's impending arrival. Mrs. Vance, gliding through the gymnasium-turned-exhibition hall, offered Malik a tight, expectant smile as she passed. Jonathan Carter arrived not with a bang, but with a quiet intensity that somehow drew every eye. He wasn't wearing his usual subdued work attire. Today, it was a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, and a deep burgundy tie. Pinned discreetly but visibly to his lapel was not a visitor's pass, but a small, official-looking badge bearing intricate holographic security features and the unmistakable emblem of the Department of Defense. He moved through the crowd with an unhurried grace, his gaze sweeping the room, assessing, cataloging. He found Malik by his display. "Looks good, son." Malik couldn't suppress a grin. "Dad, you came, wouldn't miss it." His eyes scanned the vicinity before settling back on Malik. Just then, Mrs. Vance approached, her practiced hostess smile firmly in place. "Malik, dear. And you must be." Her voice faltered as her eyes landed on Jonathan, taking in the suit, the bearing, and finally, the badge. The smile froze, melting into stunned disbelief. Color drained from her face. "Mrs. Vance," Malik said, a surge of vindication warming him. "This is my father, Jonathan Carter." Jonathan extended his hand. His grip was firm, his gaze direct. "Mrs. Vance. A pleasure. Malik has told me a great deal about Ethelred, and your interest in my work, Mr. Carter." She stammered, recovering slightly. "Welcome. We weren't expecting, that is, it's an honor." Her eyes darted nervously towards the DoD badge, then back to Jonathan's unreadable expression. Before she could formulate another sentence, Jonathan's encrypted phone vibrated. He glanced at it, his posture subtly shifting, becoming instantly sharper. Simultaneously, the gymnasium lights flickered violently, then died, plunging the room into momentary darkness before emergency lighting kicked in, casting long, eerie shadows. Gasps and nervous murmurs rippled through the crowd. "What was that?" someone shouted. Jonathan was already moving, his voice cutting through the rising panic with calm authority. "Everyone, stay calm. It's likely just a power surge." But Malik saw the look he exchanged with two men near the entrance, men who hadn't been there moments before, dressed in similar dark suits, their eyes scanning the room with professional alertness. Principal Albright, a portly man whose usual bluster seemed to have deserted him, hurried over, his face pale. "Mr. Carter? What's going on?" "Principal Albright," Jonathan's tone was low but commanding. "Initiate a level 2 lockdown. Secure all exterior doors. Keep everyone in this gymnasium. Use the PA system, make it sound precautionary." "Lockdown? But why?" Albright sputtered. "Just do it. Now." Jonathan turned to one of the suited men. "Rossi, status?" The woman, Agent Isabella Rossi, Malik would later learn, spoke into a discreet earpiece. "Network intrusion confirmed, sir. Aggressive, sophisticated. They're trying to override internal security systems, doors, cameras. Matches the Chernov profile." Chernov. The name meant nothing to Malik, but the gravity with which Rossi spoke sent a fresh wave of cold dread through him. Jonathan nodded grimly. "They timed it for maximum exposure. He knew I'd be here." His eyes scanned the increasingly anxious crowd of parents and students huddled in the dim, red emergency light. "They're not just after the network. This is targeted." Suddenly, Bryce Kensington's father, the powerful lobbyist, pushed forward, his face contorted with anger. "Carter. Is this because of you? Did you bring this trouble here, to our children?" The accusation hung in the air, poisoning the atmosphere. Mrs. Vance, surprisingly, stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly but firm. "Mr. Kensington, please. Mr. Carter is clearly trying to manage the situation." Jonathan ignored the outburst, his focus absolute. "Rossi, get perimeter teams established. No one in or out without my authorization. Albright," he turned back to the principal, "keep the crowd calm. Tell them it's a complex electrical fault being addressed." The PA system crackled to life, Principal Albright's voice attempting a reassuring tone that didn't quite mask the underlying panic. As the lockdown announcement echoed through the gym, Jonathan pulled Malik close. "Stay right beside me, understand? Don't move." Malik nodded, his heart pounding against his ribs. The showcase had become a trap. The whispers and doubts about his father felt trivial now, replaced by a terrifying reality. His father wasn't just a man who worked at the Pentagon. He was a man who attracted danger, a man currently standing between a gymnasium full of privileged families and an unseen enemy who had just plunged their gilded cage into darkness. The storm had not just arrived, it had breached the walls. The gymnasium, moments before filled with the cheerful hum of the showcase, now pulsed with a low thrum of fear. Parents clutched their children, faces illuminated by the eerie red glow of the emergency lights. Whispers turned frantic. Jonathan Carter stood like a rock in the swirling currents of anxiety, coordinating with Agent Rossi and her team via barely audible communications. "Sir, Cyber Team confirms," Rossi relayed, her voice tense. "They've isolated the primary intrusion device. It's not just surveillance, it's designed to actively disrupt and control the building's core systems. Planted physically. Location, boiler room. Someone had inside access, Jonathan stated grimly. Get me personnel files, maintenance, contracted services, anyone with access to secure areas. Already on it, but sir, the digital records are part of the system being compromised. We're trying to access physical backups. Malik clung to his father's side, watching the controlled chaos unfold. He saw Leo and his parents huddled nearby, their faces masks of confusion and fear. He saw Mrs. Vance, her earlier shock replaced by a dawning horror, trying futilely to reassure a crying younger student. He saw Bryce Kensington arguing with Principal Albright, demanding answers. Suddenly, a different alert crackled in Rossi's earpiece. Her eyes widened. Sir. Motion detected, multiple contacts, moving within the ventilation system. Heading towards this location. And, thermal imaging confirms one signature matches Chernov. Chernov. The name again. Jonathan's face became granite. He's inside. He bypassed the perimeter before the lockdown. This wasn't just about the network, it was about access. He's coming for me. He glanced down at Malik. Or leveraging me through you. Team Alpha, converge on gymnasium air duct access points. Rossi commanded into her comm. Beta team, establish secondary defensive positions around the main group. The air thickened with anticipation. The unseen threat was no longer just digital, it was physical, moving through the bones of the building, closing in. Jonathan pushed Malik gently behind him, positioning himself between his son and the large ventilation grates high on the gymnasium wall. A loud clang echoed from above, followed by the screech of tortured metal. Dust rained down. All eyes snapped upward. One of the large grates buckled outward. Contact, an agent yelled. Chaos erupted. Parents screamed, pulling their children towards the center of the room, away from the walls. Agents raised their weapons, beams from tactical lights cutting through the dimness, converging on the compromised vent. A figure dropped silently from the opening, landing in a crouch on the gymnasium floor, clad in black, face obscured by a mask. Before the agents could react, the figure threw several small metallic spheres onto the floor. They erupted not with explosions, but with blinding flashes of light and disorienting sonic pulses. Jonathan reacted instantly, shoving Malik and Rossi behind a large display board as the gymnasium dissolved into temporary blindness and agonizing noise. Disorientation grenades. Hold positions, he bellowed, his voice cutting through the ringing in Malik's ears. Through watering eyes, Malik saw shapes moving in the chaos. More figures dropping from the vents. Gunfire erupted, sharp, contained bursts from the agents, met with return fire from the intruders. The showcase displays became impromptu barricades. Sir. Chernov's not with the main assault team. Rossi yelled over the din, peering at a tactical tablet. The primary signature is moving away, heading towards the West Wing exits. A diversion. Jonathan realized. He used the assault to draw our fire while he slips out. He doesn't want a firefight, he wants extraction. He scanned the chaotic scene. Rossi, contain the assault team. I'm going after Chernov. Sir, that's too risky. He targeted my son's school on the day I'm here. This ends now. Jonathan squeezed Malik's shoulder. Stay with Agent Rossi. Do exactly as she says. Before Malik could protest, Jonathan melted into the shadows at the edge of the gymnasium, moving with a speed and silence that seemed impossible. Malik watched him go, a knot of fear tightening in his chest. He was left with Agent Rossi and her team, trapped in a firefight inside his own school, while his father hunted a ghost named Chernov through the darkened hallways. The firefight in the gym was brief but brutal. Rossi's team, disciplined and well-trained, neutralized the assault team, securing 3 intruders clad in tactical gear. The immediate threat contained, Rossi turned her attention back to her comms. Carter, status, silence. Carter, report. More silence, punctuated only by the whimpers of frightened children and the tense breathing of the agents. A cold dread began to seep into Rossi. Malik felt it too, a primal fear clutching at his heart. Where was his dad? Minutes stretched into an eternity in the dim, red glow of the gymnasium. The captured intruders lay zip-tied on the floor, their faces grim beneath their masks. The immediate sounds of battle had ceased, replaced by the low murmur of Agent Rossi's continued, unanswered calls for Jonathan and the soft sobbing of younger students. Parents huddled together, their earlier panic solidifying into a heavy, watchful fear. Malik stayed glued to Rossi's side, his eyes fixed on the gymnasium doors through which his father had vanished. Finally, Rossi's earpiece crackled. "Agent Rossi, this is Carter." Target neutralized. A collective sigh seemed to ripple through the agents. Rossi visibly relaxed, though her expression remained taut. Location: West Wing corridor, near the service exit. He wasn't alone. Requesting medical and containment teams. There was a weariness in Jonathan's voice that Malik had never heard before. "Copy that." "Are you injured, sir?" "Negative." "Returning to your position." When Jonathan re-entered the gymnasium, he looked different. His suit was disheveled, smudged with dust, and there was a dark graze high on his cheekbone. But it was his eyes that held the real change. The professional focus was still there, but beneath it lay a deep, haunting exhaustion. He sought out Malik immediately, kneeling to look him directly in the eye. "You okay?" Malik could only nod, throwing his arms around his father's neck, burying his face in the rough fabric of the suit jacket that smelled faintly of cordite and something metallic, like fear. The aftermath unfolded with grim efficiency. Police and more FBI units flooded the school. The lockdown was lifted, but Ethelred remained a secure zone. Parents and students were debriefed, their initial relief slowly giving way to the dawning realization of how close they had come to a far worse tragedy. The story hitting the news feeds was carefully managed, a foiled security incident at an elite school, specifics classified. Mrs. Vance found Jonathan and Malik near the exit as they prepared to leave. Her face was pale, her usual composure completely gone. "Mr. Carter." "Malik," she struggled for words. I am so profoundly sorry. For everything. For how I treated you, Malik. For my blindness. I made assumptions, based on nothing but my own ingrained prejudice." Her apology felt raw, stripped bare of pretense. Jonathan regarded her steadily. "Change often comes at a cost, Mrs. Vance. The important thing is what you do after you realize the price." He didn't offer easy forgiveness, but he didn't condemn her either. He left the responsibility squarely with her. In the following weeks, Ethelred Prep was transformed. Security became omnipresent, but more significantly, Principal Albright, spurred by parental pressure and a genuine sense of institutional failure, launched mandatory bias training for all faculty and initiated new programs focused on equity and inclusion. Mrs. Vance became a surprisingly vocal proponent, sharing her own failings with uncomfortable honesty in faculty meetings. Malik returned to a school where whispers still followed him, but they were different now, tinged with awe, respect, and a touch of fear. Bryce Kensington avoided his gaze. Leo stuck by him, their friendship forged stronger in the shared trauma. Malik found himself being seen, not just as the Pentagon worker's son, but as Malik Carter, the boy who had been underestimated, the boy whose father had faced down ghosts in their own hallways. Life at home settled into a new normal, underscored by visible security details and conversations that now included Malik in carefully curated discussions about vigilance and safety. The bond between father and son deepened, forged in crisis, cemented by truth. Months later, Ethelred held a mandatory assembly on community and respect. Principal Albright spoke of lessons learned. Mrs. Vance introduced a student panel discussing microaggressions and belonging. Malik watched from the audience, a quiet observer. He saw Mrs. Vance listen intently, nodding with earnest sincerity. He felt a flicker of hope. Then, during the Q&A, a quiet Latina girl, new to the school on a scholarship, tentatively asked a question about resources for students interested in advanced robotics, a field dominated, at Ethelred, by boys like Bryce. Malik saw Mrs. Vance smile kindly, reassuringly. "That's wonderful, dear," she said, her voice warm. "But are you sure you wouldn't be more comfortable starting with the introductory coding club? Robotics can be quite mathematically intensive." Malik's breath caught. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't dismissive like her comments to him had been. It was meant kindly, protectively even. But it was still an assumption. A gentle nudge away from a challenging path, based on, what? Gender? Perceived background? He saw the girl's hopeful expression falter, just slightly, before she nodded politely and sat down. Malik looked at Mrs. Vance, truly seeing her efforts, her genuine desire to change. And yet, the instinct, the ingrained pattern, was still there, surfacing in subtle, almost invisible ways. He looked around the auditorium, at the faces of his classmates, the teachers, the administrators. The immediate danger had passed. Chernov was gone, neutralized. His father was safe. He was safe. But the other battle, the quieter, more insidious one against the whispers of bias, the weight of assumption, the unconscious sorting of people based on who society thought they should be? That battle wasn't over. It hadn't ended with Chernov's defeat or Mrs. Vance's apology. It was ongoing, fought not in darkened hallways with guns, but in everyday interactions, in casual remarks, in the subtle tilting of expectations. And Malik realized, with a clarity that was both sobering and empowering, that this fight required a different kind of vigilance, a responsibility that rested not just on his father, or the teachers, but on everyone, including himself, every single day. The dust hadn't settled. It never truly does.